Mr. Manius.
Need to do roll call.
Why? We're all here. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
See, it got out of control when you made me call roll. All right, folks. Continue on.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Lead on.
Well, good morning. Good morning. It's that time of year again, and we're going through the budget process. We hope that you've received your budget letter, which was sent to you Friday, and Ms. Snyder has provided you all the background material for the budget this morning. As we've done in the past, we're going to go through some slides and talk a little bit about the economy. So we'll start by talking about the estimated net taxable value. Well, we found that during the past year, remember that net taxable value is the value that we increased by January 1, 2015. So our net taxable value has increased. Last year it was $136 billion, and we anticipate this year it's $141 billion. Now, the numbers that you see there, the 2015 is the July roll. All the other ones that you see is a September roll. So we believe that we may gain a small amount of value yet as we move to the September roll. However, we are not sure about that since we haven't received it yet. When you look at minerals, interesting, we had a downturn, obviously, when the price of oil and gas decreased substantially in tax year 2013. But what we're seeing now is that minerals are starting to come up a little bit. We've seen a 4% increase between 2015 and 2014. The tax rate, our proposed tax rate is the same tax rate that we've had for since 2008, and that is 0.264 per $100 value. That includes both the M&O rate and also the interest and sinking rate. Just a quick note, in 2006, our taxes, or our tax rate was 0.2715, and we have decreased that in the last 12 years. We've decreased that 3 times, in 2007 and then 2008, and since 2008, we've held our tax rate the same. So how do we compare with other counties? Of the 6 urban counties in Texas, now this is just county taxes. This does not include hospital district taxes. We are the second lowest, second only to Dallas. And I believe if you add in hospital districts to all of those numbers, Tarrant County is actually the lowest of the 6 urban counties as it relates to combined tax rate. So, new construction. New construction has once again increased. In 2014, we had $2.1 billion in new construction that came upon our roll. In 2015, that number has increased to $3.2 billion. So what we've seen in the last several years, beginning in 2012, which was the low point, we've seen a steady increase, and actually it looks like we're accelerating our increases in new construction. That means not only new home construction, but also businesses that are coming into the area and those businesses that are also expanding. The average home price is going up. The average home price in 2014 was $143,000. 2015 is $150,000. I believe what you're seeing is that the average price of homes that are now being constructed are at a much higher value than what we saw in 2014. So when you look at the tax rate on those homes, you'll see we started with 2008, And when you look at the average taxable value of a single-family residential dwelling, you'll see that if we maintain our .264 rate, that the average tax bill for homeowners will be $398.30, which is just a little bit more than $30 a month or $1 a day in Tarrant County. So, as we go forward today, we're going to ask that you follow the same process and procedures that we've done in the past. We're going to ask that you do an initial vote, either yes, which means it'll be included in the budget, or parts of the budget will be included in the final budget. No further consideration should be given to that particular item. In other words, it's removed. Or TBC, which is to be considered at the conclusion of the budget hearings. Trying to move fairly fast through our slide presentation today, so I'm going to ask the county auditor to come up and talk a little bit about the estimated revenues.
So we have a slide that you should have in front of you that addresses the overview of the revenues for all the operating funds. And then the next page, which I'm just going to go on to, is pretty much the major changes or elements that would make up the differences in those numbers. For the most part, what these numbers say to me is the economy is good. Most everything is up. People are buying houses, selling houses, cars. So your sales tax commission, liquor by the drink, motor vehicle fees, et cetera, deeds of trust, all of those items, everything's up. The only thing, of course, that isn't up is the passport office, and that's contingent upon what ultimately happens to the ability for that office, for those offices to open back up. But it's a good year from the standpoint of revenues. And then on the next page is our how close we were to cash carry forward. As we get a little bit closer to the end of the year in September, we'll be able to hopefully fine-tune this a little. But not really anything too surprising here on the general fund. We're very, very close. Road and Bridge, of course, is driven by what actually happened compared to what we thought was going to happen. That was a little harder to estimate as far as right-of-ways and what's actually going to go on there. And then the debt service is just what it turned out to be. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about revenue, but by and large, they're pretty stable. Things are good.
On the licenses, specifically, I mean, under the liquor and the beer and wine, it seems like we're budgeting a whole lot less than what we're projecting to collect this year. Is there some change?
And that's where my detailed person, Craig, you want to help me out? Yeah, come on up to the mic.
I mean, it's about 100,000 in one, and it's about 300,000 in another. A little less, about 250 probably. So it's not a whole lot of money.
We had meetings with them, and this is what we both agreed that it's what we felt like we was going to collect.
Because again, we do meet with each and every fee office. Craig personally met with most all of them to make sure that we're in agreement.
And you used to, it seemed like that this would fluctuate every other year, but now things, for some reason, the dates are now becoming more cyclical, more or less cyclical, and so this is what we agreed to.
I mean, I am willing, if any of you have questions, the judge or others, if you want us to go back and look at them, we're certainly always willing to do that. But again, we have met with the office holders, and we have studied and discussed and rediscussed these numbers. But we're more than happy to address any questions that you have.
The passports, we're just eliminating any estimate of income this year?
You got with Debbie, right, and we talked about that?
We're going to do contingent revenue.
The contingent revenue.
That's correct, at this time. Now, hopefully, we'll have some more information as we get closer to the 1st of September. Right now, there is no revenue associated with the passport offices, but the expense is still built into the budget, which is approaching $800,000.
Okay. All right, that's it, thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, here's a whole bunch more boring numbers, but in this particular slide, what we're trying to do is we try to give you a functional area breakdown of the complexion of the operating budget. And as you can go through there, you see that most of the information is relatively unchanged. You see a large increase in transportation. That's really related to an increase in right-of-way participation. And in this information, we try to neutralize some of the information, stripping out contingencies, undesignated reserves, interfund transfers, and the merit and lump sum and structure. In this situation, it kind of backfired on us, because truly the overall increase in road and bridge, which is what you would see is that transportation line there, is $1,055,000. Some of that increase in right-of-way was intentionally offset by a reduction in undesignated, which dropped down to the next to the last number on your screen there. We reduced, let's back up the story. We increased undesignated intentionally in road and bridge in FY15 because we had an unusually low year for requests for right-of-way. Knowing that that's the situation that will fluctuate the road and bridge fund to a large extreme, we tried to compensate for that by saying, okay, this is going to come back in a future year, so we're going to put some resources in undesignated for when that happened. Well, that happened in FY16. So while we had $1.8 million projected increase in right-of-way needs, there was $1.6 million reduction in undesignated. But that particular number is shown in that negative $5.9 million there. Reserves, because we use undesignated as part of our calculation for our 10% reserve level, we had to increase our overall reserves to compensate for that shifting. So that's why you see an unusually large amount there, $3.3 million into reserves. And again, those pretty much offset, those last two numbers offset each other, taking into consideration the explanation given for Road and Bridge Fund. Next. Here are some of the significant variations in appropriations for this fiscal year. Capital is actually down a little bit. Now, it's down primarily because we do use cash as a source for funding capital, and you notice that our cash projections are currently down. The road and bridge transfer that was necessary from the general fund to the road and bridge fund is up $1.8 million. That's also a reflection of how our ending cash comes out in road and bridge fund. There are currently 19 new positions in there. Their total impact is $1.2 million. The important number on this slide here is this employee group insurance budget number. We struggled with this budget to come up with a balanced budget, and in the end, it was balanced by this reduction to the county's participation or contribution to health insurance. And admittedly, right now, we're somewhat over-reserved in our health insurance, our self-insured health insurance fund. So this is likely a one-time reduction to this level, but we'll see it inch back up from where we're projecting right now. And we're continuing to analyze that. We had a very large claims month in the month of July. So obviously, we're watching August very, very closely. The other increases, postage, that's primarily in the tax office and elections. Elections, it is the year to mail out voter registration cards. We had some increases in custodial services. Professional services increase are primarily in IT. There's your right-of-way acquisition increase. Council fees, a never-ending burden. Small increase in MHMR, and you saw that as an offset revenue a while ago. Software maintenance, license, computer maintenance, that's all up significantly. County projects is down $1.5 million, and if you all want to know how that happened, our participation with Trinity River Vision Project, our last year contribution is FY15. $1.5 million. Principal and interest is up. We did sell the final leg of our 2006 bond issue recently, last Tuesday, and actually we have some interesting information to pass along because this was prepared without thoroughly looking at what our final bond sale information was after last Tuesday. And actually, our interest rates came in even better than First Southwest was originally projecting. So we've got a little over a $300,000 reduction, even from that number. And then again, we talked about undesignated. Some of that increase has gone up into reserves. Ooh, this got very small, didn't it? This is looking at the new positions. As we said, there are 19 of them. We tried to allocate them into a category, that being new buildings, new and expanded programs, and just simple workload. We tried to show that there's some minor offset, and we actually have an additional offset that we'll discuss with you when we get to the criminal district attorney's office. We're actually able to offset that entire cost, and that's a portion of the year, 11-month cost there, but even the annual cost with some reorganization information that we'll present to you when we come to them. It wasn't built in and included in the screen because it's not something that's been taken into the budget overall yet. Use of cash carry forward. Of course, we guard in the general fund how we actually use our ending year cash. Of course, a primary element of cash is our reserves and undesignated. And then from there, we fund capital. So you can see within our cash balances as they're projected right now that $25 million of our $31 million of capital is being funded from cash, which means the other 6 is built into operating resources. Employee compensation. Because we are who we are, as a county, we try to take our employees first. Again, this made it a little bit difficult this year because almost our entire tax revenue increase from the increase in the appraised values went toward employee structure, merit, and step increases. And we've mapped out the costs for you there. Merit, of course, belongs only to those non-law enforcement positions, and that structure for non-law enforcement positions. The structure adjustment that we discussed a couple of weeks ago for law enforcement is $2.5 million. The step increases are 1.6. And then you've got the merit structure for the Road and Bridge Fund. Total of $9.5 million. As Mr. Manius mentioned, we have not changed our tax rate in many, many years. This is the current proposed. Now this will shift because there's been that decrease I stated in the interest and debt service. And from this you can see what a penny of tax rate generates, what a percentage change it generates, and what our ETR is. And of course we are currently under our ETR. The number on the top doesn't seem like a very big number, but $4.2 million is what we, the budget office, struggle with to reduce out of the budgets, department's budgets. Overall, the proposed appropriations, along with their available revenue, including cash, is $560 million. It is a balanced budget. Our total capital requested, which again is a very large thing that we struggle with during the last 4 or 5 months, was $54 million, of which at this time we're recommending 31. September 5th is the day that we're scheduled to...
15th.
I'm sorry, there is a 1 there, isn't it?
Yeah.
15th is the day we're scheduled to adopt the tax rate, approve the budget, and approve compensation expenses for certain elected officials. And then the last Tuesday of the month, and I'm sorry, I don't know what that is, we will bring back the special purpose budget.
29th,
Thank you very much.
assuming the 15th is a Tuesday.
I'm going to, Mr. Manius never fails me on those kind of things. Questions? Seems so simple, doesn't it?
On the 19 new positions that you are recommending,
Yes, sir.
do we have any positions eliminated to offset those 19? I
That,
guess what I'm trying to get at is the total employees of the county, are we increasing the total by 19?
yes, we are. Yes.
We increasing the total by 19?
And it's something we do spend a whole lot of time on because, as you all know, unfunded liabilities are a result of our employee base. And needless to say, it is a number that we take very, very seriously and strive to keep it as low as possible and still function efficiently.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim, would you bring up Debbie's laptop? Members of the court, what we're going to do, now we're going to go through the various departments. In your book that was given to you, they are laid out in the order that we're going to take them. And so, you ready? Okay, so the first one will be the Sheriff's Department.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioner Brooks. Very glad to see you back with us, looking well. Welcome back. Good to be seen. Thank you. I'll be here very briefly. We had a really good budget year this year, and I want to thank Debbie and her team for helping us out as much as they did. They really worked hard to get this done. Before we start, I only get about one chance a year to brag publicly about my guys and, my budget staff and my team. And let me say that they've done an excellent job again this year. Dr. Eric Metcalf and Scott Grazer, our budget director, and both my executive chiefs, Dr. John Ray and executive chief Alan Dennis, keep an eagle eye on their budgets and do such a great job. And I don't know if you've looked at the numbers, but last year we ran about $4.3 million under budget, which I was just tremendously proud of, that they worked so hard to keep the budget in line. Thought it'd be the best we ever did, and then we've looked at the figures for this year. We've saved $4.6 million to date and are on pace at the end of the budget year to save $5.3 million under budget. So very, very good work by those people and everybody, all my command staff and the managers who look at the budget. Really just have one request to make. We, for years, have talked about the need for security at the Plaza building with all the infrastructure we have with the county computer systems and the credit union being there, things like that. It's the one building that we've really never had any kind of security in, and we talked this year about adding some security positions there. We requested initially 7, realizing that was fully staffed and would be our best scenario, understanding that was going to be tough to do in one single year. We talked about, to be able to run it on 2 shifts, to have 4 people, 2 per shift, 2 on days and 2 on evenings. We were approved 3, so the one request I would make would be if we could add 1 position to that security. That would be the only additional position request I'm asking for at this time. And then a couple of issues just for discussion purposes. I've talked to some of you, and I continue to be concerned as we look at unincorporated county as the unincorporated areas of the county, as our population and our density increases out there, our patrol load continues to increase. We didn't ask for any patrol positions this budget cycle because we had needs elsewhere. But what I'd like to at least put into discussion and maybe to put into the to be considered for the end of the budget cycle is perhaps at mid-year bringing at the 6-month mark, bringing an additional patrol deputy into the budget. We are keeping. I'm sorry.
1 position?
1, yeah, if we could just add 1. I've talked to some of you. I just don't want to come up to a year where we just get hammered and I have to come say, hey, I need 4 or 5 or whatever. And, I don't have to explain to y'all. Y'all are out there among the areas how many 20-acre plots that used to have 1 house now have 20 houses, 1-acre plots. And our density is increasing, and it's making it much more difficult to keep up with the workload. So I'd like to add that to the discussion process if we could. Again, be perfectly happy to do that as a 6-month, half-year addition, and then we could look at it again next budget cycle and see where we are. Perhaps our needs won't be as strong elsewhere. And the last thing, and this is just a general FYI, we debated and went back and forth about I know about the new Tom Vandergriff Courts building, and I expressed my concern, I think, to most of you about that we were only budgeted to man one door there and open one door, and we had the grand opening, as y'all all were there last week. But interestingly enough, prior to the grand opening, they actually ran a day or two of court in there, and we had our first complaint about a long line out in the heat at the Vandergriff building with only one door being open. So, you know, I think so far it hasn't been terrible, but the line was pretty long to get through one door, and I'm afraid as it becomes fully operational, it's going to be a continuing issue with us. And that's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have of me.
Sure. How many people would it take you to have two openings there?
To open both doors? We'd need, you know, we work it with two, Commissioner, but, you know, 3 positions probably to account for relief. Yeah. So if we're going to pull, I mean, everything's there, the x-ray machine's there, the metal detectors are there, it's ready to go. All we just don't have anybody to staff it. And as we talked about earlier, I just don't want to get into a crisis mode where we just have to, you know, we don't have anybody to find basically to do it. So.
And we talked about putting that in undesignated and it being there in case we were to need it during the year?
No. We actually talked about giving the building a chance to operate for a while and look at the need for it. Of course, the biggest need is first thing in the morning, when and if that occurs, and on the days that they might have jury trial scheduled.
My only concern was that, you know, our understanding was they weren't even up fully running yet. We already had our first citizen complaint, so I just didn't want that to go unnoticed. But we're fine running the door. I mean, we work it as fast as we can and do the best we can. Anything else for me?
Any other comment? I noticed that the commissary, the food stuff, is that contract coming back around? Is that why we look for a bigger increase in the food?
We just redid the commissary contract.
Okay.
And we got a substantial increase.
Increase?
In commission. And the food contract is fairly shortly coming to you guys, very shortly. The jail food.
Are you talking, I'm sorry, Judge Whitley, are you talking about the prisoner food expense or the commissary?
I might be talking about the commissary.
Because that's really not reflected in here anywhere.
Okay, in looking at my very front part where we were looking, just a second while I find it by departments. Maybe it's by the,
What was the increase? Our guarantee went from $80,000 a month to $125,000 a month on the new contract.
I thought it was one where I saw a request for 400 additional, and we ended up, here it is, 4.6 million. Food contribution prisoners.
Food contract.
Oh, that's the food contract.
Between the prisoners and the guard.
That's the food, that is renewing, they are actually in the process. You'll get that within the next few weeks.
Okay.
And we're just basing that off of trends being population and cost and.
Okay. So comments, thoughts?
Do we want to take any actions on these requests that he's made at this time?
I think if we're going to, if we've got an idea or a leaning, I would say now would be the time to do that. So what I've heard is one more in the security for the plaza building.
Correct.
Well, you're talking about 3.
Well, we've talked about 3, but he's asking for 4.
Right, there's one additional.
Oh, plaza.
Plaza,
I'm sorry, I
yes.
misread
Yep.
the building.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll move approval that we approve the 4th one for the,
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can I hear the rationale between 3 versus 4?
Just the fact that we're going to run 2 shifts, Commissioner, we need at least 2 people to do it. We're going to run, we've got where we need at least 2 people, and we're going to try to secure it from, very early in the morning till late at night. So 3 wouldn't work for us.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
And to be continued is the patrol position in 6 months,
Yep.
And what about,
and 3 security officers for the civil courts building,
Okay.
for the second door.
You know, I did stop in there the other day, too, to ask how the operating one door was going, and they said, like always, you will have days when you have more people there than others, but by and large, it's been going well.
And I think we're just going to have to see how many of those days as we move forward into the thing and just, as it gets up and running full speed.
Yeah, let's get more feedback.
Yeah, I'd also, I don't know if there's any way, and I know this is, I'm just going to duck and start taking the tomatoes. If there's any way that some of the bailiffs whose courts are not going to be hearing cases first thing in the morning could help with security, I know. But that would be very helpful as opposed to adding, because I'm sure that not all 10 of those courts are going to be setting up.
You going to get the judges to concur in that?
Maybe as they come forward for their budgets, we might at least ask them.
Okay.
Suddenly, they all become very busy, Judge, to find out. Suddenly, they're very busy.
I like your positive attitude, Judge.
It's early in the budget.
It's early in the budget, is right,
So TBC for those last 2 requests.
right.
I have one question for the sheriff. I'm sorry, the position for the patrol, is that in countywide? Is that a countywide position?
Yes, sir. It'll either be assigned to north, we have 2 divisions, north or south, and we would make that decision where we need them the most.
Okay, and how much is that? What's the potential cost, I guess,
For one position, 153 is,
I mean, it's current, well, I just stuck this number up here for the plaza
No, for-
deputy, so it's somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, I'm taking it's not going to require a vehicle,
no.
huh?
No.
Okay.
Okay,
So it's somewhere around 65, 70,000.
thank you.
Okay, then, besides, we've added a position. We've put 3 security positions and 1 patrol position to be considered. But above and beyond that, do I have a motion to approve the budget?
So moves.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable Precinct 1.
They had no issues.
move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 2.
Constable 2, I really like Constable 2. They called and said they accepted their budget before they ever saw it, so they had no issues. But you have nothing to tell me that.
move approval?
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable Precinct 3.
Now, there is an expanded program in this budget, and it has to do with their special response team. And that is included as a recommendation.
Move for approval?
second.
We have a motion and a second. As I recall, we've talked about this. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
There's, I didn't bring my policy up here with me. Is Darrell here? You come
Come
up
on down.
just a minute. Do you have a copy of that proposed policy with you? Well, anyway, well, on the lighting for those cars,
On the lighting policy.
is that in this budget too?
No, sir.
No.
It is not.
It was just a policy change, as far as we weren't adding anything. We were just revamping the way the lights were put on the vehicles,
What does that mean? What are we changing?
changing the way they display the lights. There's not enough lighting in the front and the back of these vehicles. We don't have overhead lights.
Too long.
that policy is.
We're not asking for overhead lights. We just want more lights in the front and back of these vehicles when we're stopped in traffic, trying to control traffic.
Yeah, our constable vehicle marking policy is currently under review, and we've looked at these, and the thing is that we can change that policy without actually coming to Commissioners Court. Y'all have given us the authority to do that.
I don't have a problem with what he's requesting as far as the lights being where they can be seen on the front and back.
Yes, sir.
But there's a wording in there that leads me to believe that it gives the constables the right to use their budget for additional lighting on those vehicles. I want you to study closely that statement. I do have a problem with that.
I understand that, and Commissioner, we do too. And
All
so
right.
we'll be, that is something, though, that as far as the lightings and the markings on the cars, this court has given our office authority to make those changes. However, something what you're talking about, Commissioner, we would have to bring that back to Commissioner's Court for any type of action.
I just read it. I'm sorry I don't have it with me, but when I read the policy, that gave me a little heartburn. The rest of it I don't have a problem with.
And I guess the one other question that I had, when we talked about the special response team, I think we all agree that it's needed, but that there, in my mind, y'all were going to come back with something that said, first off, who qualifies or how do you qualify? What are the things you have to go through? Everybody has to requalify, and that in order for someone to be on the team, their constable has to basically, at a minimum, approve that person to be on that team.
Correct.
And he automatically then becomes a board member too, I believe.
I believe that's right.
Yes, sir.
But I had not seen the final policy by which this team was going to be created and gone through. So if GK's got that, then I just need to
Well,
go back
we're
and look.
finalizing that hopefully next week. We have a meeting.
I think it would be good, though, that we brought that policy to court for you all to approve that.
Right. And I mean, that was my understanding as we approved the special response team, that we were going to go back and we were going to look at all that and make sure that we kind of started that process over again. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
And a second?
Yes.
Please vote. Passes unanimously.
Constable Precinct 4.
Constable Precinct 4 advised he's okay with his budget. I'd move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable Precinct 5.
I'll move approval of his budget.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 6.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 7.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 8.
Deb, what did we decide on about the additional deputy request for aid?
It is not in the recommendation.
I mean, it's not in the recommendation. And our goal is to sit down with the constables and make sure that we're all collecting workload data consistently. We have not done that yet. We said this a year ago. But those that help organize the constable meetings know that we are very interested. Matter of fact, I'm taking Candace with me in perfecting our way of collecting data. Based on the way data is being turned in right now, they are at the level of where we would fund another deputy, but we're concerned about the data collection.
So we want to leave this to be considered. When do you think you're going to get
We
that
can-
data collected?
I couldn't give you any help on that one.
I would prefer to leave the option open.
Okay, let's just leave this one to be considered, this budget.
The budget or that position?
Just that position. I move that we approve Constable Precinct 8's budget and reserve the extra position request to be considered at a later time.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to move to community services, community supervision, CSCD.
We just passed up medical examiner.
Medical examiner,
Oh, I don't have it on my,
fine, Marshal.
okay, sorry about that. Let's do,
Did I get on? Did I miss
Dr. Peruana, you almost got left behind there.
I missed a lot of it.
let's do medical examiner.
Why don't we?
We're not going to skip him.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning, Dr.
We got a
Peruana.
handout while, Debbie, we have never come to the court for a long time, so we figured we are not coming today, right?
We missed you.
Good morning, Judge, members of the court. I'm glad to see Commissioner Brooks here. We are requesting the court to consider giving us one additional position. Actually, it's just the only position for this fiscal year. That's a forensic toxicologist. The pay grade is 72, and we are requesting that the entry date be 1/1/2016. And if I have my numbers correct, it's going to impact the county a little over $55,000. Just as a very quick background, the toxicology division at the ME office consists really of three labs. The first lab is the breath alcohol calibration lab. The second is the drug chemistry lab, and the third is the forensic toxicology lab. The drug chemistry lab, of course, does all the pills and powders and leafy substances that are apprehended by police, and we do the analysis and we testify in trials on behalf of the state of Texas. These two labs, the breath alcohol calibration lab and the drug chemistry lab, are doing just fine at the current level of staffing. But the lab that really needs support is the forensic toxicology lab. This particular lab basically is a workhorse for the ME office. We do all the postmortem toxicology on drug-related deaths, all violent deaths, homicides, suicides, drownings, police custody deaths, child abuse, you name them. In addition to that, we also do what is called fee-for-service support for numerous law enforcement agencies that utilize our lab. These are mainly driving while intoxicated and drug-facilitated sexual assault cases. We are currently serving some 35 police departments, mainly in Tarrant County. In addition to that, we also do some work for a couple of labs, forensic labs, and court-ordered testing. These are cases where the judge in a court may decide that he wants the test reanalyzed, and they will send it to us. And we have 17 law firms using our lab. The net result is that there is a very large influx of cases that has come to the ME office, and for various reasons, the police are using our lab. Since 2013, there has been some 57% increase in the work output for our labs over the last 2 years, and this has a major impact on the ability of the lab to keep up. A couple of things will happen. One is that we are going to encounter backlogs in this lab, and number two is that we are going to have delays in completing case reportings, which has an impact also on the criminal justice system, since many of those cases are DWI cases. And so we really urge the court to provide us with one additional toxicologist. If you look at page 2, it basically summarizes the different law enforcement agencies we are serving, and also the law firms that we serve. And then we have the little table for toxicology receivables. This lab generates some revenues for the county. Through June of this year, the lab has generated a little over $160,000 for the first 6 months. So we have with me my business manager, Tracy, and Dr. Johnson, who is our chief toxicologist, and we are here to answer any question the court might have.
Are the prior year numbers calendar year or are they fiscal year?
They are all calendar years, sir.
What total revenue are you anticipating receiving this year? This list you give us shows through June.
June, I suspect that the revenues will exceed $300,000 for this particular lab.
Hold on a second.
300,000?
Is that correct, Tracy? 167 for the first 6 months?
Well, this is 9 months, isn't it?
No,
For the-
theirs is a
it's-
calendar
It's a
year.
calendar year, sir.
Oh, okay.
Just a second.
I got you.
I've got in front of you, well, not highlighted, but the square right there is the toxicology revenue estimates, 350,000.
So that's about what he's proposing. But yours are on a fiscal year,
There's a fiscal year.
but it's the same, it's working out to be about, although it seems light the last, if that's the case, that the prior year numbers seem light on this sheet versus what you're showing on your sheet.
So it's 193,748 for last year.
Yeah, but that's-
Again, it's a calendar year, sir. Calendar year, not fiscal year.
How many toxicologists do you have now?
We have a total of 11 people working in all the 3 labs, 1 in breath alcohol lab, 5 in chemistry, and 5 in toxicology lab, forensic toxicology, plus our chief toxicologist.
I'm talking about in that forensic toxicology.
5.
You have 5.
Yes, sir.
And how many do you have in 2013?
5, sir.
You have 5?
Yes, sir.
In 2013?
Yes.
See what, if you look on page 269 in your budget book, I mean, the numbers seem to be consistent, so it seems like 13 and 14 are low. According to at least this book, the toxicology lab revenue, it's 3 lines from the bottom. For 13, we're 354,000. For 14, we're 351,000. Projected this year is 408, and the estimate was 350. So I'm not sure where, those are the receivables. Are those what's due right now, or is that what's actually? Sorry about that.
The receivables that are entered into SAP under toxicology is a combination of drug chemistry cases in addition to the toxicology. The revenues that we have the receivables that we have provided were strictly sorted for toxicology services only.
Okay, so it's not the full amount of the toxicology lab analysis fees?
Correct. In the SAP system, it's a combination of the 2 labs together.
But the revenue that you provided is strictly for toxicology?
Yes, on this handout sheet,
Correct.
yes.
I move approval of adding 1 toxicology, forensic toxicology clerk to
Second.
You know, this sounds painful, so I know you want to move in second, but I sure wished you'd kind of rest down there. I just don't want to strain that voice. You might need it tomorrow. Okay, if I hear the motion in the second correctly, which we have, I think we're talking about, on page 265 of our budget book, that position is a 79,897 addition.
I mean, you're right. Hold on a second. It is 897. That is absolutely correct.
What'd you say?
79,897. That's
80,000.
for an 11-month period. The annual impact is, no, it shows less. Yeah, that's 11-month period. Dr. Parwani is asking for a shortened amount of time, which is just a shell game.
Oh,
Either they need to or they need it, so we might as well authorize it as soon as possible.
it's an unfortunate choice of words.
Okay, so we're supporting, basically by this motion, we're supporting adding that one position. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. That's all you're asking?
Yes, sir.
I approve the rest of the budget.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Dr.
Commissioners.
Parwani.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
and Judge, since I got up and came down here,
You're going to
I
talk.
reserve the right to speak.
Well, it's just, we're just trying to look out for your best health there, Commissioner. I
I
understand.
appreciate you, Judge.
Fire Marshal.
Move to accept the fire marshal's budget.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
CSCD.
There you go.
Debbie.
I don't think I heard from them.
Yes, you did.
I did?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No issues. Oh, I did. All right.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Juvenile.
Pretrial release has no issues.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Juvenile.
Randy, you good? Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
323rd District Court.
They have no issues.
Move for approval.
Second,
Second.
He's one of my, is he one of the, that's the juvenile, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Two juvenile.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Public Health.
They
What
have,
about human services?
well, you know, public health is next. It's on a separate tab on your spreadsheet.
Public health. is that?
Public health has no issues.
move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Human Services.
They have no issues, but they are present.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Child Protective Services.
They have no issues.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Public Assistance.
To the best of my knowledge, there's no issues here. Why, I don't-
Move for approval.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Ag.
Ag.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Veterans.
Veterans has no issues.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Historical Commission.
Archives.
Archives. We're fine.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
What?
Let's,
Resource Connection.
no issues.
move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're now going to move into the courts section. This is going to be District Court Civil.
Let me ask if there's anybody here from civil courts that wishes to speak.
Oh, yeah, come on down here. I'm glad you're here. Well, I'm glad y'all came down. Come on down here.
Corey.
Here for the 48, not anybody else. I don't know what anybody else wants to say. Yes.
Do you have a bailiff?
I do have a bailiff, yes. His name is Robert Green.
Sheriff's bailiff.
Is your bailiff
no,
with you?
we do not have a sheriff's bailiff.
Is your bailiff with you?
No,
He's not.
no.
Yeah, you don't have a sheriff's bailiff, right? Or a,
Yes, we have
Yes.
the sheriff. We do not have a judge's bailiff. We just have the sheriff's bailiff. We only have
Oh,
one
that's just the
bailiff.
kind of bailiff I was looking for. How many of your you don't know how many of your compadres over in that building have sheriff's bailiffs, do you?
I don't know.
But I'm sure that Judge Evans would be glad when he's not hearing a case in the morning,
Okay, you should have said nothing.
I know, I shouldn't have raised
teach you to raise your hand, won't it?
I'm going to get him.
Because he told you, don't worry, you won't have anything, you just stand up and say, I don't have any questions.
No issues, yeah.
Corey's relatively new as the
I
court
am,
coordinator
yes.
for the 17th.
Please forgive me.
But Judge Evans did say he had no problems with his budget.
Correct.
What I might ask is if you would go back and talk with Judge Evans and express to him that we had some conversation regarding that maybe in the mornings when a lot of people are trying to get in the building, that if a couple of their bailiffs could, or did you just text somebody and tell them to get ready? Just express to him that we probably need to talk a little bit about the bailiffs over there and maybe see if they could help us in the morning with security when it's the heaviest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pass
And we shoot messengers.
Please don't shoot.
You won't raise your hand again, will
I
you?
will not. I'm excused.
okay, we're now going to move to, oh, wait a minute, we need to have.
We need to have a vote on all the civil courts, the 17th, the 48th, 67th, 96th, 141st, 153rd,
236.
236, a lot of those, 342nd, 348th, and 352nd.
2, 3.
In light of the fact that they've got a shiny new building, I move approval of all of their existing budgets.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Not going to move, no, we're just where we need to be. We're going to go to the 231st. These are family courts.
Anybody here from the family court?
Well, if they are, they're not going to raise their hand now.
Ready. Now, let me mention here, there is a situation that we have not built into the budget yet, and it involves the family courts and the county court at laws. They were given statutory authority to hire their own court bailiffs effective September 1st. To my knowledge, so far, we've heard from one of the county courts and one of the family courts that they are interested in moving a sheriff's bailiff to a judge's bailiff. My intent is after we get through today's meeting is to call every one of them and just make sure we know where we are with that. But we have not made those transfers and put them into the budget yet.
And they understand that when they do that, that they're pretty well going to have to work their vacations and all of that stuff within their deal and not within the sheriff's deal.
We tell them that. Now, practically, is that the way it works? Probably not. I'm sure they pick up the phone and call the sheriff's department.
And he's figuring out, I'm sure what I know, just,
So far,
okay.
we've heard from Judge Harris's court, and when it comes to family courts, they actually operate two courts. They have an associate judge and, of course, their own court. So there would be two bailiffs potentially for each of the family courts and one for the 3 county court at laws.
Do each of them have 2 bailiffs now?
The family courts do. The county court at laws have 1.
So how many potential judges, bailiffs can we expect?
Potentially, there could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2 would be 12, and 3 county court at laws would be 15. Now, I have talked to one crossed on the street the other day, one of the family court judges, who said he is not interested at this point in transferring that function from the sheriff's to the court.
But those will just be transfers.
Yeah, those are, there's
There's
a
no
net-
new positions as a result of that. Again, the rub is going to come when potentially, when those positions are gone from the sheriff's office and there needs to be vacation covered.
Correct.
If they do not coordinate and they all end up with their bailiffs off at the same time, they're going to have a little bit of a problem.
No, we are.
Somebody's going to have a little bit of a
Sure. The sheriff.
Okay, so with that, we've got, what are we doing?
The 231st, the 233rd, the 322nd, the 324th, the 325th, and the 360th. All family courts.
All family court.
So move for approval of those budgets.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now we're moving to the County Court at Law, County Court at Law number 1.
Anybody here from County Court at Law?
Move approval.
Second. A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Was that for all three of them or just that?
Oh, that was
first
just one.
Just
Okay,
one.
County Court at Law number 2.
Move for approval.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And number 3.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now going to move to probate courts, probate court 1.
Judge King?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Probate court 2.
Move for approval.
Second.
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Wait. Is Judge Furchill here?
Nobody's here.
Judge Furchill has been talking to me about some program that he wants to implement within his court system. I'm sure he mentioned it to you.
There is, yes, and actually that conversation's taken a whole array of life. It's called a public administrator, and I think he's actually talked to a majority of the court members about it. We did not recommend the position. He has come back and asked for us to consider assessing the fee that's associated with a public administrator, which would generate about $35,000 a year, and that a current staff person provide that role and function with a supplemental pay attachment. I did communicate back to Judge Furchill over the weekend that that brings on a whole nother problem that we'll have to visit with HR about, and that we also would like to get together with all the affected parties, hopefully in the next week, no more than the next 2 weeks, to just discuss the mechanics of how we see this working. And when I say affected parties, we're talking about the auditor's office. We're talking about human resources now that we're talking about some sort of additional pay situation. We're talking about the county clerk and hopefully the district attorney's office.
So this is going to be on the to be considered?
It'll be a to be considered.
Is that all right, Commissioner?
Absolutely.
That's in probate court
Two.
2.
And the position is called,
Public administrator, fiduciary for handling.
Doesn't it take a
wills.
lawyer, require an attorney?
No, not necessarily. No.
What position is it?
It's called a public administrator.
Tell me it took an attorney.
Doesn't have to be, you know, there are people like you and me that administer wills and estates all the time.
And they would be generating income.
that's what, I mean, I think that's the discussion that I had with him when he came by from that standpoint. So I think let's just get some more details and get all the parties together and see if we can.
And this law has been on the books since, well, September will be for the second year. And nobody to date in the state of Texas is doing it. There is conversation currently in Dallas, but that the public administrator would be through a nonprofit. I think they're looking at some houses that are.
City of Dallas more than the county of Dallas.
Correct, correct. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, Dallas County's not involved in those conversations that, based on the emails I've been included on.
Y'all talk some more about it. Let's see where we go. So
I move that probate court number 2's budget be put on the to-be-considered list,
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion and a second.
whole budget.
Vote, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to move to the criminal district courts, criminal district court number 1.
Oh, we have a victim.
Yes.
We can get,
On behalf of the criminal judges, all 20 of them, they have no issues with their budgets, and in addition to the budgets they allow to have under my watch are fine as well.
20 of them?
Yes.
20 bailiffs.
Yeah, they're already, we already got
Okay, let me see how we can write this.
I move approval of all 20 budgets.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
There's going to be a few more besides just those 20 that he just said, okay? The 20 judges, then the criminal court administrator section.
Well, but I'm not sure I want to go with all. Before we even go with the courts, I guess I got a couple of questions. Just, again, most of the increase there is due to the indigent defense. There were, let me see if I can find that. Sorry about this, folks, but counsel fees. We have, under counsel fee court, there was about a $962,000 increase. That's on page 15.
page what?
15 in the beginning. I'm looking now mostly at commitment on our line item recaps as far as,
Right, gotcha.
but that's something that's going to be more along the lines, I think, there. And I think that would be all the criminal courts. And that's just to show, that's just the increase that we're continuing to absorb as a result of the state not doing what they said they were going to do, and that's paying for the increase in cost.
And that is a large part of it. Some of it is capital murder. We haven't really had a costly capital murder trial in a while. So we always allocate some funds in the beginning now. As we allocate those funds and the trials don't mature, we actually end up using a majority of that allocation just for the everyday counsel fees that occur in the criminal court world. But it is a combination of the criminal courts and the family courts. They have a sizable amount of counsel fees in that area too. Obviously nothing to the level that the criminal courts do.
So I think with that, I'm all right with the courts, but I'm not ready to put those other ones in there yet, because I got some other questions I want to ask about.
Move approval of the criminal courts budgets.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now, with regards to court administration, the one question I had there, we did not add any employees, but we've got about a 10% increase in, we got more than a 10% increase in salaries, and we have about a 20% increase in retirement. What happened? Page 111.
Yeah, tough question on the spot. All I can tell you is that we'll go back and look at that for you.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. We added a couple of positions mid-year to this department. Greg, what were they? Sorry, made you let you get all the way back to your chair.
That's fine.
They're included in the 13?
They're included in the 13.
We added a auxiliary court coordinator mid-year, and we added a associate judicial staff counsel mid-year.
So now you've got the 12.
Now I remember.
Now you've got the
you say both
12-month
those, I
impact.
remember them. Okay.
No, you almost got me on that one,
Greg,
too.
Greg, don't leave.
Greg,
Yeah, don't
your
go through.
courthouse is capsizing.
On your.
Oh, thought it was a metaphor, not
You were
an
about to be-
actuality.
You were about to be in distress.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, because of, back on criminal judges, because of Judge Gallagher's involvement in this trial out of Collin County, is he going to incur any costs that will affect his budget that
We
we're
don't-
about to bring?
We don't anticipate any significant costs. His first pretrial hearing will be, I believe, on the 27th to determine actually where they're going to hold the trial. So, but we don't know at this time.
Okay, with that, I guess that would be,
Criminal Court Administration,
okay,
I move approval of the budget as presented.
Second.
we have a motion, a second, please vote, motion passes unanimously. I think we passed over
We need to go to
magistrate court.
magistrate. We need to do the magistrate court. And you said there's no changes?
We have a motion,
Move for approval of the magistrate court's budget.
Second.
we have a motion, a second, please vote, motion passes unanimously.
And we have the grand jury, is that part of your? Yes. Grand jury?
You're okay with it?
District court judges are, yes.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, please vote, motion passes unanimously.
Criminal attorney appointment? You okay?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, criminal attorney appointment.
That's a jury, well,
That's the Office of Attorney Appointment.
Okay, that's
the
just,
direct result of the Senate Bill 7.
Yes.
now I hear you.
You
Please
might be
vote.
familiar with that, sir.
Hmm?
You might be familiar with that.
Yeah, I've heard rumor to that effect. Motion passes unanimously. That position has gone from basically 1 when it was Holly to 9 when it's, or I guess it's still 8 now, right? Because you didn't get your new position.
It was never 1, but it was more, it wasn't 8.
Well, we're taking, they do the indigency analysis.
That includes the financial information officers, interview all the indigent defense people that are requesting attorney. And originally.
All of this supposed to be funded by the state.
Yeah, originally.
Moving right along,
Have we voted on that? Okay. And then criminal mental health court? Any changes? No, sir.
do I have a motion? Have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion, a second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to go to justices of the peace. Anybody need a break?
Yeah, right.
Can we, Your Honor, could we take a 10-minute break, please?
We could. We'll take a short break.
mics, turn up the heat.
That's right.
Members of the court, if we could go to Justices of the Peace, JP1. Yes,
Judge,
sir.
Commissioners, I'm here just simply on one item in my budget based on education. To date, I'm asking for the $11,000 request that I made instead of the $8,200 that was recommended. Quite simply, the $11,000 I'm asking for is only $556 above what I've already spent this year. There's been also a recommendation to cut my supplies by $1,500. I'm willing to accept that, but I need this education money. I have 8 clerks that have mandatory training, plus my training, State Bar CLE, which I don't charge the county for. And I also, for the last 3 years, have been traveling state, training judges throughout the state. And it's budget money that I know I need. I think that there's no doubt that I can better determine, other than the budget office, about where I need my money and allocated it, instead of me having to take money from other areas like supplies and spend it on things that I know I need. So I'm simply saying that I will accept the budget cut in my supplies, but I'm asking that you would grant me the $11,000 that I've asked for in my education budget, which I know I need.
George, let me ask you, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I guess in looking at this, your education is at the 8,000, it's going to be about $2,000 more than all the other offices.
It's $2,800 above. It's $2,800 above what I've asked for, the recommended.
No,
but again, it's only $556 above what my actual expenses were.
But I guess my question is, why is your education so much higher than the other JPs?
It's probably a combination of things. It's probably because of my State Bar CLE, but mainly it's because of my travel.
I thought you said you paid for your State Bar CLE.
I do for the courses. I do for the courses, and I do for the rooms. But
Okay,
but I've asked for.
Okay, wait a minute, let's back up. If you're paying for your CLE in the rooms, why then would your request, that doesn't explain then why your request would be higher in education now. So you're not putting any of it in, it's all up in education? So I don't understand.
It's all in education. All the funds I'm asking for, again, is simply $556 above what I've already spent this year.
But what you've
It's
already
based
spent
upon
this year.
The monies I've spent, Judge, are based upon my traveling pretty much around the state training judges. I mean, that's really the focus of where it's been. And I've done that for the last now 3 years.
So who do you is the travel at the request of TAC, or is it the request of other?
It's the Texas Justice Court Judges Association.
And they don't pay any of that?
They don't.
Judge, are you asking for additional over and above what has been recommended?
Yes, I'm asking for $2,800 above what was recommended, which is simply $556 above what I've already spent to date this year. That's it.
And again, my question, you keep referring to what you spent this year, but what you spent this year is substantially more than what all the other JPs are spending.
Well, I don't know that. I'll take your word at it. I don't know. I don't know. I'll accept that as being true.
It is.
But also, let me say, in regard to my clerks also, for their training, I try to keep every bit of the training I do locally. And I've sent all my clerks locally to the schools the last several years, so I don't try to incur any more expenses than necessary. And in fact, again, I return money to you all every year. And I spend only what I need. And if I didn't need this, I wouldn't be wasting my time or your time certainly standing here today telling you this. If it's not spent, it will be returned to you. That's what I do every year. In fact, if you look at it, I've had to hold off ordering supplies for this year because I have to use monies to compensate, take money out of one area to pay for another. To me, why should I do that? Why can't we just get a more realistic picture of what my actual expenses and needs are? And I'm telling you this is what it is. That's simple.
Do y'all have a board of directors from your JP's association?
Well, there's two associations, Commissioner. There's a JPCA, Justice, Peace, and Constables Association, which has the Justice Court Training Center. And then there's the Texas Justice Court Judges Association, which is made up of judges and clerks only. And that's the organization that I teach for. In fact, I'm going to take over beginning this fiscal year. I'll take over for that organization as the Director of Education for that committee. And I'll be traveling to doing some of that. In the past, I've just been on the committee, but now I'm going to be in charge of that training for judges in the state in that one association.
I think the judges already asked this question, but you don't get compensated for that?
I don't.
Nor any reimbursement for mileage or anything?
No.
Is that the JP, again, I'm asking, is that the JP's association, or is that?
No, JPCA is a different association which is connected with the Texas Justice Court Training Center.
So what's the difference between that and the other one?
Well, the other one's been in existence, I think, about 10 or 12 years, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not sure the extent.
Is it also just Justice of the Peaces?
Yes, it's Justice of the Peace and also clerks. That's the only one. There's no constables in that association. And that's the one I teach for. There's two different organizations.
But that second organization is not under TAC?
No, sir.
Who's it under?
It's a standalone organization. It's been that way, I think, probably.
How do we pay dues to that?
Self-funded. Yes, there's membership. It's a nominal amount of money per year. And they collect monies from that, but beyond that, it's self-sustained.
Debbie, what do we pay to that on a dues basis on a regular?
I don't know. I'm not aware of, I'd have to research vendor files to see how much we pay that association. I mean, it'd be individual election by the various JPs.
I believe it may be $50 a year, maybe less. I'm not sure the exact amount of money.
About $50 a year?
Maybe. I'm not sure. It's a very nominal amount of money.
Yeah, I take it your court belongs to that association? I can look at there.
Yeah, my court clerks are members.
Judge, what you're asking for is $2,800 additional.
Above the money that I've asked for, which is only $556 above what I've already spent for this year. And I'm willing to accept a $1,500 cut in my supplies.
What's the total amount that you're asking?
$11,000.
I move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
I move approval of the remainder of the budget.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP2.
Move for approval of JP2 budget.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP3 is satisfied.
Move for approval.
Second.
JP3.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP4.
JP4
Move for
regrets
approval.
that she couldn't
Oh.
be here. JP4 regrets that she couldn't be here today because of scheduling conflicts when we changed the meetings. She did send a communication requesting one position. I mean, they have had various workload increases and changes like the other JPs have, so I don't want to diminish what's going on with the JPs as a whole. We've worked with Judge Wright in the past, either to fund some temporaries or some now elected to use overtime in lieu of temps. Let me see if I can find another file right quick.
Are you recommending any additional positions in any of the JP precincts?
And not in the JPs. In several situations, we've increased or made a recommendation, and some of them have been added on your file since the books were printed, for temporary employees. We've got kind of a transition world going on with JPs with the changes in the truancy laws. And the JPs are working very, very hard to try to come up with a solution to address the functions. It'll have to occur for many, 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 many cases that have been filed throughout the county. And then several of the others are experiencing some workload increases because of traffic tickets, precinct 5 and 6 in particular. Those are a result of NTTA activity. Again, we're trying to address some of these with some temporary funding. We've read the other day that within TTA, they're looking at some speed limit increases. So that might diminish some of the activity that's occurred there. Truancy, again, being the biggest situation. We're working with Precinct 7, who's trying to take the lead in dealing with the truancy cases and the expunctions, knowing that their court has a great number of them that were filed there to start off with. We don't really know what path the schools are going to take from here out. They will likely begin filing on the parents. To what magnitude? Will it be the same as they were filing against the students? We don't really know. To answer your question, I've not recommended any of the new positions, but we are adding some temporary funds back to several of them as a stopgap.
That was a
measure.
long roundabout answer.
I know, I'd like you to know the facts. No, we are not. But
Well, that would have been a
Precinct
short
4
answer
has
at
made
that
a
point in
request.
time, wouldn't it?
I move approval of the recommendation from the budget director.
Second.
We have motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP 5.
We have added temporary funds in this department on your spreadsheet. It's not in your book. They're not here.
And that's primarily because, excuse me, I'm sorry.
On the basis of having added those temporary funds, move approval.
Second.
We have motion and second. And those are primarily for the tickets, you're saying,
Correct.
which we've read about in the paper. So hopefully they'll, if the city changes their
Some of
stance.
us have gotten them.
And we hope you promptly pay.
I think NTTA will be more than glad to bring that speed limit up to what they would have originally proposed.
I hope so.
Well,
Isn't that a neighborhood issue?
that was a neighborhood issue.
It was.
Did the neighborhood move away?
No, but.
No, but I think they've gotten enough tickets that they're ready to be. a
Cars
little
have
bit more.
gotten quieter.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP 6.
JP6, we did pre-add some temporary. They are also experiencing traffic ticket activity.
Move approval of JP6.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
JP 7.
JP7, we have added an adjustment on your spreadsheet.
Those looks like 650
Oh, my God.
petitions.
Oh, these are not petitions, Judge.
Good.
First off, I want to tell you, when my bailiff is not in court with me, we return him back to the constable's office, and they do utilize
Oh, I
his
thought you were
time.
going to send him down to the civil courts building. and
If
take
we
care
could,
of
if
the
we
morning
could
crowd.
get some express lanes down there, we'd be glad to do that for you, sir. Just to follow up on what Debbie was saying, the legislature has substantially changed the nature of our truancy laws this year. Up until September 1st of this year, it is a criminal action for a child to miss school. Starting on September 1st, it now becomes a civil offense. It's convoluted. Everybody, including the schools, trying to get their arms around it. As Debbie said, we're not sure where it's going to go. The criminal offense of parent contributing to non-attendance did not change substantially. So going forward, we're just all standing here saying we don't know. Ask me next summer and I'll have a much better answer, much more definitive answer for you. We've been working closely with Debbie on some contingencies depending on what may occur with that. Probably the most immediate change for the courts is that we're required to expunge every single fail to attend school that's ever been filed on a child. That law is 20 years old. We initially identified 35,000 of those cases that have been filed here. You can see that Justice Court 7 is the biggest part of those cases, and that has to do with demographics and the city court over in Fort Worth taking the lion's share of the rest of the county cases. That 37,000 is now 49,521 cases. If a student comes in today and says, I want this expunged off my record, I've completed high school, we would charge them $30. That's a state mandated fee, and we feel that's probably a fairly accurate reflection of the cost to the county to actually expunge those records. There is no cost for these expungement. It is a mandate, and there is no funding from the state. If you do the math, that's somewhere around $1.5 million. Now, we work very closely with the DA's office. They've been great. We've gotten a lot of guidance. We've found many efficiencies. We don't have to send 49,000 letters to DPS. We can send one letter with a thumb drive to DPS, so we found a lot of efficiencies. However, we will have to manually pull files out of the warehouse, sort through boxes, ensure what's in each box so that we have proper destruction of these records. We've worked with Debbie for a couple of temporaries. Initially, I'm going to be assigning one of the clerks out of my court about 30 hours a week to head up that project. We're not sure what the impact on our manpower is. And we just don't know. So I had initially asked for a clerk, but now I've got 996 cases I know will not be filed, at least as failure to attend school this coming year. Just for information, I had that 1,000 students, and I had over 300 parents in my court this past year. Is that going to turn into 1,300 parent cases? I don't think so. But what number is it going to be, and how many of these will be the civil cases? And if we move forward with these new civil cases, our workload will greatly expand because these are much more onerous, much more time-consuming, both for the clerks and for the judges. The schools are not excited about that. At least the schools, the 3 school districts I work with are not excited about that, but we don't know until we get there what that's going to be. So the whole personnel thing's up in the air as to where we're going. But again, Debbie and I talk very regularly on what we can do, how we can do that. For what it's worth, until these traffic tickets came around on Chisholm Trail, my clerks handled more cases per clerk than any of the other courts out there. Traffic tickets have driven up JP 6 way above us. So our workloads are up there, and so I'm very cautious about how much more work we can put on the clerks. But right now, I'm not asking for additional personnel. We're going to work with some temps and try and fill in some blanks where we can, and try and make it work for the county, and be very cautious of committing those tax dollars for the long term.
So again, you're saying that each one of these expungements is a mandatory fee of $30?
It is up until September 1st under the old law. Once a student had a GED or a high school diploma and they completed whatever the court had told them to do, they could come pay a $30 fee. We would expunge the case. As of September 1st, the law mandates that we expunge every case that was ever out there, and there's no allowance for a fee.
Now, quickly add too that with the change in the state law, that it also changed the fines that could be charged on the parent contributing cases.
Yes. It used to be that parent contributing was a Class C misdemeanor. The fine was between $100 and $500 plus court costs set by each court. The new fine structure is first offense is $100 plus court costs, second offense $200 up to the $500 fine, and that's up to the schools how they file them. The school has to track that. So if they just send it in as parent contributing, we'll have to consider it a first time. We will see a reduction in the fines and fees that are collected. In addition, any fines and fees that are owed on these 49,500 cases that are out there that are uncollected will be wiped off the books as of September 1st. We cannot collect them after September. Our guidance is that we're not allowed to collect anything after September 1st.
I support the efforts to decriminalize truancy by allowing these young people to get their records expunged. And I would support whatever resources are necessary to get that done. You would have my attention if you would ask for resources to aggressively implement that expungement program.
Thank you, Commissioner. And my job as a judge is to do what the law says, and we're absolutely going to do that. And that's why we've been talking so closely with Debbie to ensure that we can get on this. In my court, we've already taken steps to begin some of the preliminary work on these expungements, and we've got a couple attempts on my budget. As you can see, we're going to assign a clerk. We are going to very aggressively handle this. As far as the court is concerned, September 1st, these cases don't exist. It's going to take us a while to physically pull them out of the computer system, physically pull those files out of the warehouse, work on destruction. but we consider them all expunged on September 1st. We've notified the police agencies that hold the warrants for my court, not, as of last week, not to confirm any more warrants if it says fail to attend school. It may take us a while to physically get the documents back and get those fully expunged, but we're not touching any of those. We're acting as though they're already expunged because we believe that's the guidance from the state legislature.
Thank you for your leadership in this issue. Are you all right with your recommended budget?
I'm all right with my recommended budget. Again, I've talked with Debbie. I'm not saying I'm coming back mid-year. I don't think I'm coming back mid-year. There may be a request at some point. We just don't know what the future's going to bring on this. It's very uncertain.
The goal is to tackle the whole situation as quickly as possible. We just really don't know enough about it yet, and after we get up and running a bit and we can evaluate, we may be back.
If we see workloads drop, then there won't be a need for additional requests. And just to put the bug out there, as long as I've got a microphone, looks like Highway 360 South will be built over the next 2 years, so I would anticipate a comparable increase in workload in my court that JP6 and some of the other courts have seen because of Chisholm Trail.
Not unless they put a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit.
I haven't had the pleasure of driving Chisholm Trail yet, Commissioner, but we'll leave that again to those
I'd bet
folks.
the speed limit will be a little bit higher. The only thing with this 85 percentile, which is what they're supposed to do, until they pull the policeman off of that, people are going to drive the speed limit, and they're not going to be able to determine it. They did this same study on 45, and so they would have this study, and so they raised the speed limits, except that there were a couple of places where the speed limit was lower. Anybody driving on 45 regularly want to guess where it was? Buffalo, Fairfield, right there where everybody knew there were speed traps, and everybody slowed down. So until they pull the speed traps off of Chisholm and allow people to
we just handle what was filed in our courts, Judge.
I'll move for approval of JP7 budget.
Second.
a motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
JP8.
Move approval of JP8's budget.
Second.
a motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Criminal District Attorney.
I know you're surprised to see me stand up, aren't you? We've been working with the criminal district attorney on a reorganization. One of the things we've been talking to the criminal district attorney about over the last 3-4 months is her concern and her desire to address the positions that we're currently funding out of what we call the Narcotics Forfeiture Fund. If you move back in time, Narcotics Forfeiture Task Force was funded by a grant initially, and that went away probably about 4, 5, 6 years ago. And since then, the county has been subsidizing that operation. So what we've done now, we've kind of stepped back, and we've looked at the positions that are currently being funded out of what we call D87, and those are listed on the top half of your piece of paper. And then the second half is a recommendation or an agreement with the district attorney's office for the elimination of some currently funded general fund positions. Couple that with the elimination of our subsidy that we've regularly been providing to D87. Comes up with an overall net fiscal impact or gain to the general fund of about $6,700. So in essence, the request is to transfer 11 positions that are currently funded in D87, the Narcotics Task Force, eliminate 6 positions that are currently funded in the general fund, and eliminate the subsidy that's included still in your budget for the criminal district attorney for the D87 fund. And by taking this action, it also 100% or it more than pays for the new position that the criminal district attorney requested and is included in your recommendation. So we are recommending its approval. Now, just a quick note, there are still operating expenses related to this operation, the narcotics operation, that will continue to be funded and paid for out of forfeiture funds.
So we actually reduce the overall operational cost
Correct.
of the criminal district
Attorney's office. That's correct.
Am I?
Move approval.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Any other issues with the criminal district attorney? None? Thank you.
We're now going to go to district clerk.
Now, did we pass her overall budget, or did we just pass
Move
that one?
approval of the district attorney's overall budget.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And we just ran out of money.
Oh, I'll tell the litigants that. At any rate, good morning, Judge and Commissioners. While I much prefer, as I told Ms. Snyder this morning, to get up here and agree on everything, as we've done the last several years, I think we have some issues to discuss this year. I would like to ask you to take a look at the position that I requested for the tax department. We've had a sharp increase in tax lawsuits filed and more coming, according to our major law firm that deals with that. Our transactions are up over 20% this year, carrying a 24% increase in cases filed. We've been handling some of these increases by redeploying people that we're not going to have to redeploy in short order. Because in January we got our first MDL cases. We've been pulling the people out of the civil courts and rotating them in and cross-training them. But the multi-district litigation cases, which we'd never had before in the 20 years that I've been here, we were designated one judge in January and then two more in March on the Chesapeake cases, and now we've got another one coming, I understand, on big insurance cases. And these are cases that are pulled from other counties and all concentrated in Tarrant County. So we went from 0 to 3 courts that are handling these MDL cases. In Harris County, which is the only county I know of that's had MDL cases, they actually have judges that do nothing but hear those, and they have staff that do only the MDL cases. We don't know how many of these cases there will be. I mean, there are attorneys advertising on the television to sue a certain oil and gas company and these others as well. So that's going to take away from my ability to redeploy people. In addition, we're working on a project with Ron Wright, which was essentially shift some labor, best I can tell, from his department into mine, but may be more efficient to do it that way. We really haven't gotten to the end of that project where staff has finished their recommendations, but that one would definitely take some more help. So I would ask you to reconsider the position that we're asking for in the tax department. And then my part-time budget was reduced by 10% over what I had for this year, which we really used that part-time budget to leverage everything else. That helps fill in the gaps because court work is notoriously uneven. And I would ask the court to take notice of the fact I still have the same number of staff per court as I had when I walked in the door 20 years ago. We've added some support staff, and we've added some more courts, and we've added some judicially mandated functions, such as what the judges mandated a little over a year ago in the tax department, which we are now, those cases are ripening where they're coming through the system. So we're seeing that impact on that new process that they mandated. And then, of course, there's the passport department, and So I'm not sure where you want to begin here, but I'll hush and let y'all.
You may have a lot of surplus people.
Well, I hope not, Commissioner. I mean, it would be
I
a
do
real
too.
shame. But I don't know what to do about it. We've never had this situation. I'd certainly like to see it move faster, and we've discussed that in another venue, and it's been decided to wait. So I guess we're still on hold on that.
Tom, with regards to your part-time, I mean, you're on tap to spend about 260 this year. You requested 300, and she recommended about 270, a little over 270. So, I mean, it seems to me like what she's recommended is in line with what you're spending this year.
Well, there's sort of a lag on the SAP. And again, I really don't ever trust those figures. They do lag behind. I can go through some figures I went through with Ms. Schneider a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes those figures are just not up to date. I'm not sure why.
Craig? I see you hiding back there.
They're a week behind, and plus SAP is very proud of its calculation process, so often it will accrue expenses, even in temporary, if there's consistent utilization. So,
Well, it's not consistent because we have the summertime where we ramp up. Also, we're behind other county departments on what we pay on our part-time. But again, I understand there's some strangeness this year.
Well, and there is, and I guess, I mean, my preference would be, given everything that's kind of in the strangeness that is going on, would be to approve the budget as it is, knowing that you could end up having some people who are going to need to be placed other places from that standpoint.
But if they're not, then I need the people that I've got, and I don't have anything to take care of this extra business in the tax department. Is there some way we could do, again, I don't say I have all the answers here. Is there some way that we can do some kind of contingency here with this person that if we don't need them, I won't hire them? We've actually done that before on other positions.
Is there somebody that, let's say, in your passport division, it sounds like, from conversations I've heard, that there's a possibility that you may be back running the passport office at some point. And there may be some retraining of some employees, and you may end up needing less employees, do you think?
I don't see how.
You don't see how?
Because, again, we expect to be able to recapture our volume. I mean, we were running so far ahead of last year that unless our business has been somehow damaged, I would expect the volume, and I believe that's the other. I sent the auditor at her request, and y'all were in the room, voluminous figures on that. We had virtually all of last year, which was a record year, in the House when we were shut down with 3 months to go in the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Wilder, you're asking for one additional clerk?
Yes, sir.
and what we tried to express to Mr. Wilder is, if we find out the outcome of the pending issue, then we have the ability to come back and address this. Once we know the answer, then I think it'll complete the picture. I recommend that we leave this pending for the moment.
And that would be fine with me as long as I can come back. I mean, is that what you're telling me? I can come back on this position?
I would move that we approve the district clerk's budget and set this additional clerk position in the to-be-considered file for later.
Let me ask a clarification question of the motion. Does that include the $30,000 for temporary part-time?
You mean leaving it as it is?
That was not
As the motion.
contemplated by my motion, no.
So it's just leaving, it's leaving everything recommended?
It's leaving it the same, Roy?
Yes.
what if the figures aren't correct, like Tom seems to think they're not?
Can I speak to that, please, since I'd like to?
We have a motion right now without a second.
I second.
I second.
Okay.
Just
In regards to the accuracy of SAP or not accurate, I would remind everyone that the district clerk system and SAP are not integrated. So the information that's recorded in SAP is recorded when we receive it from the district clerk and reconciled on a regular basis, so it is accurate. It will not match up necessarily with his records, though, because he has a case management system that is designed and functions very differently than an accounting system, and until that issue is resolved, the numbers will never be the same at the exact moment that you're looking at.
And I can
But it's not that
see
they're not
that.
accurate.
Again, I don't mean to say that SAP, again, it's just not an integrated system. It never has been. It wasn't designed to be that way. The new system will be that way, we hope.
Just not updated.
But your question had to do with payroll, and payroll is very, very accurate, and those timesheets are 1 week behind being
Well,
earned.
once
That's the
again,
way everybody is.
Okay, right now, let me see if I can repeat what I think we have as a motion, and then if the maker and the second agree, then we'll know. Right now, I think we have a motion to approve the budget as recommended with the additional clerk position to be left for consideration at this time.
That is my motion.
And that's what I seconded.
Okay. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Thank you.
County clerk.
I'm good.
Move for approval.
You are good?
I'm good, thank you.
Second.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Domestic relations.
She must be happy.
Move for approval.
Which one?
Domestic relations.
Admin, child support, family courts, supervision, enforcement.
Second.
Supervision, enforcement.
A motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Jury services.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Special judges.
The next two are actually departments that we manage. Special judges, we only administer visiting judges and substitute court reporters there. The next one is courts and judiciary overhead. That's where you'll probably see a significant increase in counsel fees.
Wait a minute. You're still on special judges, right?
Special judges. I bounced over to the next one.
So let's just stay with special judges for a
Okay.
second. So given what was said earlier with regards to Judge Gallagher, is that going to have any, we don't anticipate that really having any impact with regards to him hearing this?
No, sir. No, sir, we don't.
Okay.
That seems counterintuitive to me.
Well, I guess I have heard at least some folks discuss the fact that this may be an 18 to 24-month deal, which may mean that a lot of the activity is not going to be until the following year. So maybe that's the reason why it would make a little bit of
The
sense.
first part of this process is going to be hearing of motions, and that apparently that's going to end discovery, and that's going to take a substantial amount of time before they go to trial.
But aren't we going to have to backfill in order for Judge Gallagher to do this?
I think what they're saying is they don't anticipate the hearing of the motions to be that lengthy, and a lot of the...
That's not what he just said.
No, I think you, go ahead.
No, the time that it takes is for example, for discovery, there'll be a substantial amount of time that the judge will grant for the defense to have discovery.
But that discovery time will not be something that will involve his time.
No, sir, it won't.
Okay. That's what I had understood, but I wasn't sure. So do I hear a motion on special judges?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Courts and judiciary.
It's another one that we manage, but if there's no question, we're recommending its approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
And this is the one that has the increase in the, I see your increase in the capital murder, and then I also see, I'm not sure we hadn't already passed this one, but
No. I mean, this is really kind of a holding area for capital murder fees because we don't really know which court they may land up in. We have a small amount of seed money for just normal activity that might happen regarding a capital murder trial in each of the felony courts. And then as we know more, it's allocated from here to the courts.
is that the reason on this council fees why we have no prior year, but we're increasing?
That's right. Nothing is actually expensed from here. It's a holding area.
You just move it to other courts from here?
Correct. And you'll see a lot of that activity happen, especially this time of year, on appropriation adjustments.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. The next is my budget, and the only thing I would say is we're still discussing the 3,300 down there under capital. I think that may or may not go down depending upon what the executive or what the desk chairs cost. We're going to not have the side chairs that were in the budget. I'll move approval. Second? Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
County Administrator's Office, and once again, we'd like to thank the administrator for submitting a bare bones budget this year.
And he works so closely with us.
Move approval.
Move for approval.
We have a second. We have two motions and 2 seconds.
What? Sorry about that, guys.
Motion passes unanimously.
Non-departmental.
There's a couple of adjustments that's already included on this budget. One of them has to do with a side effect of some changes in the IT budget. Obviously, this is our large holding area, our overhead account for the general fund. So it's quite large in nature. But if there's no question, we are very comfortable with the status that it's in right now.
So the compensation allocation, that's the 3% that we've talked about.
And that ultimately will be spread to all the departments
Right.
before we approve the budget.
The county projects that drop down, I mean, is that just sitting now over in Road and Bridge or
No, the
over
county
in?
projects is what we discussed quickly this morning. That's the completion of our
TRVA.
funding at Trinity River Vision.
Okay. There's our transfers, undesignated and reserve, addition to our reserves. And that addition to our reserves, is that to get us up to where we,
Maintain
is said
our-
by our policy?
That's correct. We'll maintain our 10%.
Do I have a motion on non-departmental?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Debt service.
Well,
I
this
move
is,
we pay our debt.
we repay our debt, and we will ultimately have a reduction of a little over $300,000 here.
330.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
What about the road and bridge, non-departmental? Are we skipping that?
That's easily included with the approval of non-departmental, but you're right, there are two different.
That's right.
funds.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do I have a motion on non-departmental road and bridge?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now for county auditor.
County auditor.
County auditors satisfied.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Budget risk.
We've scrubbed it all we can, but if there are no questions, we're recommending its approval. We did.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please
It's very
vote.
difficult.
Motion passes unanimously.
Tax.
Move approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Surely we can discuss something on this thing. Motion passes unanimously.
Elections, they're okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
A few of them I have never.
Move approval of elections.
Second.
I'll look at my ledger.
We have a motion and a second. So the postage, we've got the postage increase in here for mailing out all of the new voter registration.
Correct.
I noticed that it seemed like our part-time, I thought our part-time was going down.
You might have been looking at contract labor.
Maybe that's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
Something that was going down, and it surprised, yes, it is contract labor. Elections contract labor.
Correct.
Which surprises me when we're going to be having a primary. So you're still shaking your head, but
We're still okay with it. Elections is working closely with their use of contract labor overall, and these were just some adjustments that, and the bottom line is, we're all comfortable with it.
okay. Do we have a motion or a second? We do. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
IT.
IT, we have added some adjustments on the spreadsheet here. Some of them significant, but we've worked closely with IT over the last 2 weeks to perfect some of these situations and issues and concerns that they had. I think at this point in time, IT is comfortable with the recommendation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
IT satisfied.
Move approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Human
Okay, we may
resources.
be, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was thinking, so we might take just a 5-minute break or 10-minute break. I know we're getting close, but let's take a
10-minute break?
little bit of a break. 10-minute break.
think that was your second not so subtle.
I know. I just don't pay any attention to them anymore.
Well, public service.
Human resources.
Which one?
Human resources.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's still morning. This podium is awfully close.
Close enough.
Close enough? So overall, we're very pleased with our budget. There is just one item that I want to make sure that the court is aware of, and actually it impacts HR's budget as well as IT's budget. For the past several months, HR and IT and other departments have been working to put together an online system at the court's directive. The court may recall that when you had your discussions with your consultant, Mr. Steele, on your strategic planning initiatives, one of the items that bubbled to the surface and one of the court's concerns that was addressed at the time was training. And so the court wanted us to take a more comprehensive look at countywide training. And so we've done that. What was requested in the budget, in HR's budget, was $50,000 for what we call content. And this would be training tools and videos and other things that we would have included in what we call a learning management system. So that was our proposed response to the court's initiative. And then IT included some money in the budget for the infrastructure, for support, deployment, those kinds of items. So those monies are not in the budget for 2016. I wanted to make sure that you all are aware of that because, again, we have been working for the past several months to put in place what you've asked us to do. We've been talking with IT in the last couple of days. What they've indicated is that they are still committed to trying to identify resources and potentially funding to help us move forward with your initiative. So I wanted just to make sure that you all were aware of that.
Where was that $50K included in your request?
I think it was under educational materials, if I recall correctly, Judge Whitley.
So it looks like.
I think it's under professional services.
Well, let me
So
find my
again,
budget.
some of it's under, it looks like there's $30K that you didn't recommend under educational material.
Yeah, I show what we requested was $50,000 under educational materials.
It was actually $62,750.
Right, but $50,000 of that was for the content.
Okay.
Just the contents, again, that would help support the learning management system. And again, the bulk of the monies, again, were in IT's budget.
If I could address that just a minute, because Ms. Glenn and I had a conversation, and I had asked Ms. Glenn to at least make the court aware of that. It was part of the strategic planning process that we went through, and a piece of it that was really the lion's share of it was a project under IT, and we simply didn't have enough money to get down to that level. And so I asked Ms. Glenn simply to make you all aware of it. I think they go hand in hand, though, don't they, Tina?
They do.
If we don't do the IT thing, then we don't do this either.
That's correct.
I mean, the IT piece of it was over $1.2 million.
It was 1.3, I believe. Thank you.
The move for approval of human resource budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Purchasing.
Big Jack says it's okay. Move approval.
Second.
Did somebody twist his arm to get him to say it was okay? I think so.
A motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jack.
I just thought it was appropriate that I named my Pillar G case since we have to lean on him to turn his procurement card bill in on time and other issues like that.
Go squeeze your hand, Jack.
I'm sorry, can we reopen purchasing's budget too? We have some recommendations.
Okay, go ahead, maybe.
No, we're done. Facilities.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second.
That
Please vote. Anything?
includes all the buildings also.
Include all the buildings, the administration, plaza.
And that includes, are we going to do the capital separate and apart? Or is that all a part of this?
I mean, they're all a part. If you got some specific questions regarding the capital and facilities,
Well, I think so.
okay.
But let
Capital
me,
is later.
we're going to do let's do capital later. I guess. Please
So-
vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Commissioner Precinct 1.
I move approval of my budget, pointing out that those two equipment operator positions that are charged to me are actually Commissioner Johnson's.
And they're not charged to you, but they were misrepresented on the PowerPoint presentation this morning.
I'll second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Commissioner Precinct 2.
I move for the approval of precinct 2 budget, pointing out that we have about 500,000 or so in capital request to replace 3 very old pieces of machineries that we have. I think the newest one among the 3 is about 18 years old. So, and that's why you see that increase in the maintenance budget.
Move approval.
Well, he moved approval, you seconded it.
Second.
Please vote. Motion approved unanimously.
Commissioner Precinct 3.
I move approval of precinct 3, and we do have one item that we're questioning under our maintenance facility for $220,000 that,
Culverts?
no. And that might be it.
It is it. Culverts are down 220,000.
Okay,
You appropriated 222 this year, but you haven't spent anything.
right. Okay.
I think that's county projects is what you're talking to, Commissioner Fickus?
Well, it says culverts.
Well, they happen to be the same number.
Second.
We got a second?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please
What do you
vote.
do with that 220? Nothing?
Culvert, it looks like.
Huh?
According to the judge, it's a culvert.
Well, I imagine it's several of
But
them.
we are,
It's in the county projects
Well-
line item.
No, it's
and
in
we're
the,
doing a pretty significant project on Bonds Ranch Road, and that's probably exactly what that is, because you couldn't,
20 here?
the 290 something
Right.
is the labor portion, and we were buying those culverts, and that project has been postponed a couple times.
It's been postponed, it's been rebudgeted. Here is professional services, and I think you're right. As far as FY15 goes, it was split up amongst various places,
Right.
and now we're outsourcing the entire project, so the complete cost is this $297. So that's why that variation looks the way it does for culverts. But this county projects number that Mr. Fickus has in the budget, we've told him we'll go back and do some research on that.
Thank you.
you understand all these numbers.
The 220, we thought was something else.
Which 220?
The 220 you were talking about on.
Culverts?
Yeah. See, mine doesn't, this doesn't say culvert on it.
Okay, go to page 243. And look 5 lines up
Yeah,
from the
I
bottom.
saw that, the 222.50.
And for some reason, I mean, you haven't spent but 5,000 this year. And she's only recommending 2,500 next year, so there's, for some reason, we didn't use 220,000 Now, maybe it was misaligned. Go over one to your right, or to your left. See that cell that says 222.5 for 215 appropriations?
Right.
Was that all supposed to be culverts?
The 222,005, as I understood it, that was in the budget for FY15 was intended for Bonds Ranch Road, which will not occur this year. And now the whole thing is being outsourced out. And so its replacement number is down under professional services.
So go to the next page and tell me what the 220,000 for county projects was last year.
That was the
I-
culvert.
That's the research. That's the research that we need to do for Commissioner Fickus. I can't answer that question on the spot here.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously, even though I think there's still to be some.
Correct. Possible.
Commissioner Precinct 4.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Transportation.
Move for approval.
Second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I guess the one question I've got on all the right-of-way numbers,
Yes, sir.
every year I know we budget a lot and spend a little. Are we expecting to spend a lot this year, or is it going to be the same?
Well,
He's coming forward, so don't, I mean, what are some of the projects?
The same portion is a big chunk of it is on the State Highway 360 I-30 interchange. That's a pretty good chunk of it right there, as far as the match that we do to the state. And the other is several projects that we have planned in, several of the precincts. Three of them in Precinct 1, and I think a couple of them maybe in Precinct 4. So it's just have the funds available for any right-of-way acquisition.
Okay. And again, we're still with the state, they're still allowing us to kind of pay as they spend, not pay ahead.
That's what we are expecting in FY16. It may not be the total for that whole interchange, but it's the portion that we feel that they're going to need in FY16.
Okay.
What line item is right away?
Pardon me?
It's on page 249, and it's 55 1,000 and 55 2,000, state right-of-way and county right-of-way.
Yeah, okay.
And I believe we already voted, so that was kind of an after-the-thought question. We voted on transportation.
Several departments.
That's the entire.
The rest of them.
Members of the court, that's all we have this morning. Now, what we will do is, you'll see on the agendas, the regular agendas on Tuesdays, under briefing, item dealing with budget, that way that you all can talk about the budget issues any time on any court date. So we just have it properly agendized for you.
Okay. I guess we did Central Garage Sign Shop.
Yes, sir.
They're all part of transportation.
Okay, could we just at least kind of go down, the capital, because there were some items, like, for example, and I guess maybe in the transportation, we had 100 in Central Garage. Help me understand what let me find that one and all. Maybe it's self-explanatory.
What item do you have a question on?
Central Garage, we just had about $1.8 million, and I guess it's just a bunch of cars.
That's a lot of vehicles. If you'll go over to if you're looking at your book, there is a tab that's just for capital. And here, let me pull it up on here.
It's, beginning,
On page 263.
yeah, that's where Central Garage is.
And that's where the vehicles are, 263 and 264.
The most significant individual item there is $130,000 to replace one of the transport buses for the sheriff's department. And the rest of them are, we can give you the departments behind all of these if you would like it.
But I'm sure you've gone through and that's been the policy as far as total miles and different things like that, that number just stood out a little bit, so that's the reason I asked.
It is up a bit from this fiscal year, not a lot, but it's up a bit. And if there's one other intended change here, primarily we have in the past bought sedans for the constable's offices and the newer vehicles, the Interceptor. There's been some issues with those, so we are going to slowly move constables into more of an SUV vehicle as opposed to a sedan. They are tight, the vehicles.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Manius?
Your Honor, we do have lunch ready for you all, and it's in 504C.
Okay.
But that's all we have this morning.
Thank y'all.